All right, so I'm gonna go through my updated Nekusar deck. Um, I don't, I'm not gonna put like a change list, but I do have the old video and the new video. I'll explain as many of the cards as I can, especially the ones that are a little bit more ambiguous in terms of what they do. Right. So obviously we have the commander. Um, so Damnation, it's a board wipe. I think that Nekusar, you need board wipes. They're extremely important. Um, Nekusar has a tendency to get killed a lot, so I tend to hold him back until later in the game when he's gonna win it. When it's gonna really matter, and I focus on control for the early game. Disallow, pretty straightforward. It's a really good counter spell. For 3 mana, you get to let's see the camera counter a spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. So yeah, it's pretty solid. Commander Sphere, Mana Rock, and also card draw in a pinch. It's a 3-color deck. It lacks green, so it's Commander Sphere is it's probably worthwhile. I haven't found myself wanting to cut it, but it can be a little slow. Black Sun Zenith, that goes right with the board wipes. The counters can be useful against like stuff that persists, but that's a pretty niche case. Synchromancer, this is a really good way to win. Both off the discard, right? So you gain 3 life, it helps keep you alive. And then your opponent's creature is dying, you may gain 3 life. So this one is really good against infinite combos. It's good against what's it called? It's good like with your board wipes, good against token decks. It just works pretty nicely. So that's gonna go in the pile that's like win conditions, basically. Turgid is one of the nastiest things in the deck. I have a Turgid deck as well, but I like this card regardless. That's going to go in the win condition pile because Turgid is really nasty. Arcane Signet, straightforward. I think there's still like $1 or $2, so you should have one in every deck. We're going to skip over the lands because make your mana base based on your budget and what you can swing, right? Sigil of Sleep, this is probably one of the best cards in the deck. It's one of my favorite niche tech options that nobody really seems to know about. I have been pushing it a lot, so it's at least in the play groups in my area, people have started to pick up on it. But yeah, this card's nuts. Literally, it says whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. I wish that my focus was working. You can take my word for it. You can Google it or whatever. Anyway, so that's gonna go kind of with removal, but that card's just insane. Vampiric Tutor, obviously, you need tutors, especially in this deck, because combos. We got a land, Molten Psyche. It's a wheel. It's fine. It's not the best, but it works fine. Boilerworks, Cairns, Island, Sulphur Falls, Steam Vents, Watery Grave, so mana. Anvil of Begarden, this one makes people draw additional cards, so that one's pretty useful. Chromatic Lantern, of course. This is obviously much better than Commander Sphere, so I'd recommend if you had to trim something, I would trim the Commander Sphere, but the card draw, it is good. You really shouldn't discount it. We got Windfall, and actually I gotta make these piles a little bit different. Just Swamp. Grim Tutor. This is pretty straightforward. These are like $20 or something now, like $15. This card is really cheap. It used to be like 300 or whatever, so it's not as good, right? Because it puts it into your hand for 3 life, but it puts it into your hand and it costs 3 mana. Like, I don't think I've ever had that card in my hand and then not gotten something useful off of it. Solve the Equation. Pretty straightforward. Curiosity. This combos pretty nicely, obviously, with Nekusar. I'm not even sure where I would put this. I'm just going to put it under good stuff. Yawgmoth's Will. So this is obviously, this is obviously good. It allows you to basically give your entire graveyard flashback. So we're going to keep that. Notion Thief, this is just an unfair card. You basically steal your opponent's draws So it's a nombo in this deck if you're trying to kill them through draw. So you just have to remember, you know, when you play this card, you're changing up the entire way the game is going to play for you. You're eliminating one of your win conditions, and you're basically soft locking the game. Same with Narset, right? So those are in there kind of just like, if there's somebody who like just can't take damage or something like that, or Nekusar just costs like way too much money, I'm sorry, mana, then I might consider, you know, that alternate win condition. Got more lands. Deadly Tempest, it costs 6 mana, so it's not the best option. But it does destroy all creatures. Each player loses life equal to the number of creatures that they control that were destroyed this way. I use it because there's a lot of token decks that I have to play against, and this just kills some of the people in my play group. I would play Toxic Deluge over this 9 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10. Except for in my play group, specifically. Force of Will, because, you know, you need to counter stuff. Time Spiral, because this card is absolutely insane. This card is amazing. It literally, you untap 6 lands, up to 6 lands. You get a new hand, get a new everything. I just, yeah, I love this card. I used to run High Tide in Legacy, so that one's gonna go there. Time Twister, it's a wheel. Yeah, it's a wheel. I don't know. There's not much to say about it beyond that. Memory Jar is Memory Jar. It's nice because it's a delayed wheel, right? Like you can just leave it sitting around until you need it. So that's one thing I do like about it. Nightscape Familiar. It's such an underwhelming card, but it does generate value. I'm on the fence about it. I have cut it before and I've put it back in before. It's 50-50. That just goes in like the good stuff pile. It doesn't, you could almost put it in the ramp pile. Bone Miser. This card is interesting. It's 5 mana, so I don't find myself playing it too much. But if I do manage to get it out, it does generate massive amounts of value. You know, it's not as good as Waste Not, so that's another card that you could cut, because that's kind of a win more card. So yeah, I don't think it's like the most important thing. Mystic Retrieval, get stuff back from the yard. Winds of Change is another wheel effect, but not discarding, just shuffling. Mana Crypt, obviously you need mana ramp. That's pretty straightforward. Locust God is kind of one of the win conditions in the deck. Theoretically, it makes a lot of tokens. Terminate, you use this to kill, you know, creatures. So that's kind of straightforward. There are better removal options at this point, but like, I don't know. I don't feel like explaining it really. I just like it. I use it. It works fine for what I need it to do, but you can do other things over it. It's more important to have. It's more just about this slot being removal. Urborg is worthwhile for basically no reason, but I have it in here anyway, which actually makes me think there's other decks that need it that run coffers. So I probably should be taking Urborg out because I don't think I run coffers. So we have the Mountain. Last Word. This is actually, all right, in EDH, Last Word, I run it in a lot of decks. Anything that's not CEDH, I run it because it can't be countered. You pay 2 extra mana for it and it can't be countered. Like you pay 2 extra mana over a counter spell and it can't be countered. Glistening Oil, this is a win condition. It gives your commander Infect. I don't know if they've changed the rules. I hope not. I don't think so. People probably would have said something. Dark Deal, it's another wheel. You know, pretty solid card. It's a wheel -1, but still. Waste Not, so this is just the better, much better version of Bone Miser. This card single-handedly wins games with a wheel most of the time. If you can't win off the Waste Not, then you'll probably, like, your deck probably wasn't, like, it was lacking win conditions to begin with. Time Reversal is like another wheel, basically. It's a time spiral without the untap. So Dispel, for me in my meta, Dispel makes sense because I counter a lot of instants. That's you know, you decide. Scroll Rack. This helps you protect cards that would otherwise be wheeled away. So I would consider this to be a must-have or an auto-include in the deck. Counter spell because it counters a spell. Spiteful Visions. This is kind of underwhelming. So in my opinion, all the cards that passively draw people additional cards are for the most part underwhelming. Like best case scenario, they help you draw stuff a little bit, cool, but you're not like a super super hard control deck. So it's not like it's refilling your hand with just like nasty little things. But your opponents are constantly gaining off of it, right? Like they're accelerating their strategies. You're helping them accelerate their strategies. So I'm on the fence about cards like Anvil or Spiteful Visions. So those could get cut for just literally more control spells. Megrim, this is a win condition. Whenever an opponent discards a card, Megrim deals 2 damage to him or her. You know, so I'm going to put that in a separate pile because that's, of the Megrim effects. And Spiteful Visions technically is there too because whenever a player draws a card, Spiteful Visions deals a damage to them. Here's another wheel plus a very minor board wipe if you need to. So that one's pretty solid. We have Scalding Tarn, obviously. Prosperity. This one can kill people. Each player draws X cards for X and a blue. Sorcery. I'm going to put it with wheels. Technically not exactly. Crawl Space. This helps protect you from things that are trying to kill you. I'm going to put it with removal. It's not removal per se, but you could consider this pile to be creature mitigation, right? Damage mitigation. Give it a more broad term, and then we can make that work. Same with Evacuation, right? It's there to save you. Bonus with Evacuation, of course, is you can use Evacuation and then use a wheel to permanently get rid of whatever it was on the field. So don't forget that that's an option. Soul Ring. The Signets are all like, I just think you should run them. You don't have to, but I think you should run them. Reliquary Tower is necessary. Crux of Fate. So I run this because of 2 things. Number 1, the mode is really nice because there's this one kid in my playgroup who plays dragons all the time and targets me a lot and gets tilted easily. So obviously Crux of Fate. But honestly, it's a 5 mana damnation minus the regeneration clause, right? So kind of technically worse, but regeneration is basically not relevant anymore. But yeah, so Crux of Fate, it's good. I like it, and I think that for the extra mana, it's probably worth it. If you're playing CEDH, then don't. Library of Lang. This helps you manage your discards. So it helps you tuck things that are important, similar to Scroll Rack's function, unless that doesn't function the way I think it does. I never bothered to Oracle text it. Liliana's Caress. It's like Megrim, but it costs less mana, so it's good. It also is lose life instead of dealing damage, so that can be an advantage. 1,000-Year Storm. So this card is definitely a win more card. But I found that if you stick it, you basically win the game. So a 6 mana win con in non CEDH is I would consider it to be viable. The amount of power you get out of it is just nuts. So Fetid Pools, Blood Crypt, obviously pretty straightforward. Chains. So Chains of Mephistopheles, it's good. It makes people so basically what it says, every time a player draws a card, that player must first discard a card from their hand. If there's no cards in their hand, they mill one instead, and this doesn't affect the first card that they draw. But basically it makes them discard more cards, so it gets you more triggers for like Megrim and Caress. I'm just going to put it in that pile. Wheel of Fortune. So this is obviously just one of the wheels. Not much else to say about it. Sudden Spoiling. I personally just like this card. You could run other stuff. I've found that it can be extremely effective against combo decks. It's really good when somebody swings out on you. It's really good when somebody swings on another person, and then you can basically choose who's gonna lose their creatures that combat. So I think it's worth running. I really like that card a lot. Hero's Downfall, destroy target creature or planeswalker. I think planeswalker removal is necessary. And on that note, terminate could easily be Dreadbore instead. But I think that planeswalker removal is necessary as more planeswalkers get printed with, you know, powerful effects. Wheel of Fate, it's a wheel with suspend. It's okay. Counterflux, it's in here for the same reason that Last Word is in here, because it can't be countered. The fact that you can overload it to counter all spells you don't control is certainly nice, but it's really just because it's an uncounterable counter spell. Shivan Reef, Badlands, Reforge the Soul. It's another wheel with Miracle. Mirror Maid. So Mirror Maid is in here primarily for Megrim or Caress. You could, I guess, theoretically use Mirror Maid on Thousand Year Storm if you're just a dirty, dirty person. You could use it on Curiosity. You could use it on Sigil of Sleep. I don't know if you really would do that. You know, there's different stuff you can use it on, so I think it's worthwhile. It's going to go in the pile of miscellaneous things that are good. Polluted Delta, Demonic Tutor, because, you know, tutors. Croesus Charm, return target permanent to its owner's hand or destroy target non-black creature and it can't be regenerated, or destroy target artifact. So obviously artifact removal is important. Returning a permanent to its owner's hand is generally good, at instant speed especially, and destroying target non-black creature that can't be regenerated is reasonably good, right? So for paying Grixis, I don't see why not. I think it's worthwhile. Then we got Is It Signet, and then we got Volcanic Island. So that's the deck in a nutshell. You could make it more competitive by trimming some of the more like the win more cards. Like you could trim Thousand Year Storm. You could probably trim Mystic Retrieval. I guess you could trim Locust God maybe. You know, add more control spells. You don't need Time Twister, obviously. You know, get rid of Deadly Tempest, put in Toxic Deluge, you know, different stuff like that. So I don't know. It's really up to you guys. But this is a much stronger version of the deck than the 1.0 video I made a couple years back. So you could play this in probably like a mid power play group, like low to mid. Definitely I wouldn't play it in high power, but maybe you can. It's subjective, so maybe it works in your high power play group, but definitely not around me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I gotta go do work.